And we are live, showtime. Good evening and welcome to FTB Sports. This is Talking Points, our weekly roundup of all things Tottenham. And it has been some week in the week of Tottenham. Apologies for yesterday. We were due to be on yesterday, but circumstances, we had to be on today. But we are going to be regularly on a Monday, 8 p.m. Look out for us Talking Points, where we'll be discussing the most in talking points of the week so far. So we're going to get straight into it, gentlemen. No introductions for yourselves because everybody knows who you lot are. And I'm going to start with this one. The main topic. Jose, back him or sack him? David, Irish Hotspur, take it away.
Yeah, look, for me, lads, I would back him, to be honest with you. Look, for me, he's not the problem. It's clear as day there are players in that squad that have just been here far too long. It's grown stale. And if you're not gonna back him, you're gonna have to do it to the next manager that comes in. So why not give it to a man that has a track record of bringing trophies? I do believe they already started at the last window, and I think maybe this window, if they could, because we have Session and Skip coming back. So that's already two players coming into that to provide competition. That means that frees up two to go. Probably Ben Davies is one, maybe Harry Winks or Sissoko is the other one out. So that there's money then to bring in transfers. And the thing is with Jose, he doesn't this thing about him needing millions and millions is a myth. Obviously the better the club you're at, the more expensive they can get you as your players. But the one thing Jose will do is bring in the right caliber of player with that money. And people also say he's the best defensive coach in the world. And our defence is the problem. So why not give him the money to rebuild that defence? For me, I think it's a very important summer all around from the board. Basically, because look, they could sack him and then bring in someone else. But then you're talking about another 1, 2, 3 years maybe before you see any results. When you could just give Mourinho this transfer window, see what next season brings. Because let's be honest, look, as many lows as there has been this season recently, there was also so much promise in it. And certain areas let us down. So if we can get rid of this deadwood and if we can improve the defence, I do believe we have a real shot next season at success.
Yeah. I can't disagree with anything you said there. I've always been a bit of an advocate of, we've got a manager in that has been lauded everywhere he's gone. He's won multiple trophies. Yeah, he's got a bit of bad press. I think a lot of it has to do with bad press. Yes, we've heard about the stories at Chelsea. We've heard about the stories at Manchester United. We have, as you said, got a lot of players in here who are from the Poch era, and they let him down. So there's nothing to say that these players aren't doing the same thing. There's been a lot going on in the club. I think as you said, if you give Jose the right tools, I think he could definitely make us into the team that can win something. So it's all about, do you give him that money to do that? And how long do you give him? That's the question. So, Mike, I'm going to come to you next. What's your thoughts on Jose? Sack him? Back him?
No, I completely agree with David. Myself, I would back him. And again, like David says, I think when you look at the players, a lot of them are from that POC era. And they've thrown him under the bus. Some of them are doing... And I think we've probably all got our own ideas as to who that group of players are. Me personally, I don't think Mourinho's... I mean, there is a part of blame of him, but in the grand scheme of things, I think a lot of it's down to the players. I mean, if Mourinho can give the players all the tools to be successful, but it's down to those players. Once they cross that line, it's down to them to perform. And if they're not performing, there's only so much sort of Mourinho can do in order to try and get them to perform. So I think back him. He's got a track record whereby it speaks for itself. I mean, who else are we going to get in that's going to be more successful than Mourinho? I don't think there is anyone. But it's an important summer. Again, I echo what David says. It's an important summer. For me, I wouldn't. If Mourinho is going to have a bit of a clear out, it has to start at the defence because they're just not up to the job. Attacking wise, I don't think that's our issue. We can score goals all day long, but if you haven't got a strong defence or a defence that sort of Mourinho can trust, then I mean, you're always going to be of that fear of, well, we're going to have to score more goals than we concede, and that's not sustainable. So for me, and the players that I'd get rid of, I'd name 4 straight away: Winks, Sissoko. I'd get rid of Aurier.
I think that could be another show, Mike. We could go into another show doing that.
Get rid of those. There's about 4. There's 4 defensive type players that we could get rid of, and I think if you can get rid of them, get the players in, then it might be a different scenario. So yeah, I echo what David says. I completely agree.
Darius, do you think Jose needs money to be successful, or do you think he can develop the players that we've got there? What's your thoughts on next summer? Well, sorry, not even next summer, this summer and the transfer window, if we were to keep him? And do you want him to be the manager of Spurs at the beginning of next season?
I think it's difficult because I think with the signings that he made last summer, a few of those players I definitely would agree with fit the kind of mold that he wants our players to be and our players to play like. I do think a lot of the players, i.e. Bergwijn, I would also say players like Jack Clark, I know he came before, but Sessegnon, these players weren't really signed with the intention of Jose. They were Poch signings. So I think that it's going to be difficult to see them kind of get their way into the team unless they really prove to Jose that they can fight. And that's what makes me fear slightly. I think the players that he's got now, he's not going to be able to do anything. And I don't think we're going to be able to sell all the players in the time allotted, which makes me fear, because I think it's going to take 2 years to sell all the players that we want to get rid of. And I believe that in 2 years' time, that dressing room could be a lot worse. I think it's too far gone for me. I personally think that dressing room is too many players that are against him. And I think that even if he was to weed out 2 or 3 players, there would still be players in that dressing room that don't want to work for him. And I just think it will cause too much disharmony throughout the next season for it to work. That's my only reason.
I know Mike wants to come in there, but do you really think there's a load of players that are poison? Because I don't think there's a load of players. I think there's a few. I really think that some players are just not good enough, if I'm honest with you. And people like Ben Davies, I don't think he's a problem in the dressing room. I just think he's just not technically good enough. There are players that you could probably perceive to be bad eggs or whatever. We're only speculating here. When we get onto our next point, we might have a little bit more discussion on that. But I still think that there's just players that we need to get in and players that we need to get out to improve the squad overall anyway.
But sorry, Mike.
I was just going to say, it's not necessarily the bad players, because like you say, Davis isn't the greatest player, but he isn't the issue. He'll come onto that pitch and he'll give it his all, 110% effort. And I don't mind that. It's the players that you can see coming in, just like Winks and stuff. You see him come on, and it's just like, oh, come on, mate, have a bit of bite about you, have a bit of passion, a bit of heart, play for the badge. And Davis shows that. He's not the greatest player, but he's a tryer, and I don't mind a tryer. It's the ones that just come in and think, like Dele Alli. There's been occasions this season where he's come on and you're like, oh, is he interested or not?
Is it a confidence thing though? Would you say it's a confidence thing with some of these players?
I would say that, but then I'd say who is a person to kind of take that confidence away from them. And that's when I look at Jose and I think I understand that the players aren't good enough. There are certain players in this team that aren't good enough for our squad, but at the same time, he has caused certain players to kind of maybe feel a little bit disjointed from the team. And he's kind of, because Dele Alli wasn't even in the squad for a lot of the weeks earlier on in the year. He wasn't even getting on the bench. So I think that Jose doesn't help his situation with the players that aren't getting into the squad. And I think that's what's going to cause the issue. Because you're not going to be able to get rid of all the players. You're not going to be able to get rid of all of them.
But if you're a bad trainer, why do you deserve to train? Why do you deserve to play?
I understand that. I completely understand.
Just on Dele Alli though, that was actually a situation that was brewing under Poch, because he didn't play well for a whole year underneath Pochettino, if not longer.
True.
And like people want to try and make that Mourinho thing that, oh, Dele Alli's not playing well because he's not cuddling them and tucking them into bed at night. But things like that, at the end of the day, that all comes down to Dele Alli, what he wants to play. But like the fact that people are making a Mourinho issue, it's not 100% true, because it was there before Mourinho came in.
Yeah.
Harry Winks, look, he's just not up to the level. He's talking about England before he's even talking about playing for Tottenham.
Exactly.
I actually have a question for you, lads. It's not just the bad eggs we need to concentrate on. Do you think that maybe Lloris, Kane, Son, and Alderweireld, the 4 key players in the team right now that we would say are winners out of the Poch era that we want to keep, do you think they're going to stick around for another rebuild, especially if it's like a Nagelsmann coming in? And like when these players are talking about winning trophies and coming to the back end of their season, do you really think they're going to stick around for someone like that? Because Alderweireld said after he signed his contract, I'm staying because I've always wanted to play for Mourinho. Kane had that interview with Harry Redknapp before Mourinho came in under Pochettino, basically stating that, if Tottenham are going in the right direction, I'd stay. The first thing in the documentary Mourinho done was brought Kane into the office and got him on site. So we also have a potential of losing them, which makes that rebuild much like 10 times bigger, because you're never replacing Kane. It's going to be very hard to replace Son. Alderweireld might get away with replacing Lloris. You're talking to replace him with a substantial number one, not a player. You're talking about a player that's ready to come in. You're talking 70, 80 million. So it's going to add a hell of a lot more on to rebuild, and it could come to a point where you might never claw that back.
I think I agree with you. I don't think certain players, and I look at Lloris, I look at Kane, possibly Son as well. I don't think they're going to want to go through another rebuild, because it's going to take 2 or 3 transfer windows for any manager that comes in to get the players that he wants. Jose might not have exactly all the players he wants, but he's certainly developing something. So he might only need another transfer window or 2 potentially to get things right. That can be done within a season, obviously summer and then January potentially. If you get a new manager in, I don't think we're going to get the best out of the team in any sense until at least next season. And I think that those players are going to say that's another year gone. If we haven't won anything, we're going through this phase again. You're going to be ups and downs. And you're right. I think they'll be gone. Personally.
And also, I think Mourinho's probably keeping a lot of those players there, because if Mourinho's there, you always stand a chance of getting a trophy, whatever it might be. You do stand a chance of winning silverware. Whereby if you get rid of him, the chances are we're going to bring in someone that's relatively, I say a novice, I use that in a loose term, but nowhere near as experienced as Mourinho. No guarantee of trophies or silverware that we as Spurs fans and as players desire and want. So if Mourinho goes, I could see quite a few of them. Why would they stay?
I asked the question though, guys. Do you think in the next year, realistically, do you think if Mourinho, let's say Mourinho stays and he gets a couple players in and he sells a few players, do you really think we're going to win anything substantial in the next year? Because I say that because let's say we keep Mourinho, we keep the players, we go the next year, we don't potentially, let's say we win a Carabao, we win something, but then we still have this whole rebuild behind us. We still have Kane's a year older, Son's a year older. They're not going to be any more valuable in terms of the market. And I don't know if that risk is worth it to go one more year, devalue our players, and then potentially not win something substantial where you could potentially start a rebuild now, because it's going to be tough either way. We've got a rebuild on the way. Our best players are in their primes right now, so there is an inevitable rebuild going on. So I don't know if it's maybe easy to start it earlier.
So if they're in their prime, why do a rebuild now?
Because I'm asking the question is, do you realistically see us doing anything next year? Would you not want to cash in on one of the players and begin maybe a rebuild? That's my own. I'm playing devil's advocate slightly, but I also do agree. I don't personally see us doing anything next year, which makes me think, what's the point in going for it? That's only my opinion.
I do. I think we have the potential to do something, and the reason I say that is because there are a number of players that we can clearly see, and that goes back to the game at the weekend against Villa. Now, I think all we wanted to see as Spurs, certainly from my perspective, all I wanted to see was certain players do very, very basic things. Running around, pressing, passing to your teammates, and not just watching players walk by and thinking, oh, that's, not passing on responsibility. I think when any team plays badly, you see players pass on responsibility. What I mean by that is instead of trying to play that forward pass, they'll play the safe backward pass or sideward pass, or they won't even try that pass at all. You know what I mean? So again, I think it's a lot to do with confidence. I think Jose maybe has to change a slightly approach to certain players, and whether or not he's tucking them in bed or not tucking them in bed. Again, professionals shouldn't be doing certain things. If you're a professional, you go out on the football pitch and you perform. And this probably goes quite neatly into our next point here. It's a disgrace. So we all saw the interview after the game. Zagreb, terrible game, terrible result. Players just didn't look like they were wanted to be there, some of them. And our club captain came out and basically used those words. It's a disgrace. He was almost calling out certain things in his own teammates to say, if we were to not going to act as a team and certain players are moaning or sulking because they're not in the starting lineup, we will never win or do anything. Mike, I'll come to you first. Was Luis right in saying what he said?
Yeah, he's the captain. I think it warranted him coming out and calling out those players. I mean, other than having a good old ruck in the change rooms after the game, I think that's him coming out and saying what he said is probably the safest option, and calling them out. And I think him calling them out, Mourinho making the changes he did for Villa, I think you did see a change in the way that we did play. I think you had the players that were on the pitch. I think they wanted to be there. They were playing for the badge. It just seemed like a gritty performance, which the last two games we just didn't seem to have that grit, that determination, that will to want to win. So yeah, I fully back what I mean. As I say, Lloris is the captain, and it probably was a move by Mourinho where he's probably thought, you know what, I've said too much already, or everyone knows what I'm going to say. Let's have it out from someone else, i.e. the club captain, and let him talk to the press and give him the sort of full scope to say what he wants to say. And I think he did without naming names. I think we can all probably guess, like I've mentioned, we can all probably guess who those players are. But yeah, I fully think it was deserved, and it might have done the trick because we kept a clean sheet against Villa. We didn't look like conceding. We only one shot on goal against Villa and stuff. So something must have worked from what Lloris said. So yeah, I fully back him and agree with the comments.
Darius, if your captain came out and you was playing football and he said that about the team, and you was probably one of the players or not one of the players, depending on how you took that, would you be happy that your captain came out and said something like that?
It's a hard one. I don't know how I feel about it, because if we had lost that game against Villa, it could have made things so much more worse. I think it was a risky thing to do. I think he took a massive risk doing it, and I think it's going to pay off. I do think that basically exposing these players that aren't really playing for the badge or the manager, doing that is going to sort of force those players to kind of have to perform. Otherwise, they will get weeded out by the fans, by the media. I just don't think it's going to create. It's not going to do anything for the dressing room. I don't know if people care about that. I don't know if some of these players have their one eye out the window already. So I don't know what the case is in the dressing room. I can't really say that, but it's a risky thing to do. It's paid off. The players that came in did a good job. Rodons, Tanganga, they came in and they proved why they should be starting. But you have to now carry on these results. You have to keep winning these games, because if you start falling off and these players who came into this team aren't performing, then you're going to start deflecting the blame to other people. So, and then the players who personally think that they've been outed by the captain are going to feel even more of a way. So I agree with you. I do think that it was the right thing to do, because some of these players do need to sort themselves out. They need to realize that their own egos and emotions aren't as important as what's going on in the team. If you've seen what's happened in the club, you've lost to Arsenal, you've lost to Zagreb. Yeah. You kind of need to pull your finger out and just at least try and win for the team, just to try and get the fans back on your side. That's what you should be doing as a minimum. So he should have done it, but let's just see how it goes. It could blow up in our faces. We could go and lose the next 3 games. We could go and win the next 3 games. So I just hope we carry on this. We need to carry on. It can't be just one game, and has to be for the rest of the season now.
David, before I come to you, I just wanted to add a point. I think one of the reasons why Lloris maybe did that is because I personally believe if fans are in the stadium this season, I do not believe some of the players will be playing like how they are. They've got a lot. They've got away with a lot, because I've been to White Hart Lane many times. I've been to the new stadium as well. And when the fans see players doing certain things, they're on their case. They wouldn't let them have it. The fans will make it known. Again, away fans being in that stadium against Croatia, they wouldn't have had that. You know, even the small amount of away fans that may have been there would have definitely given the players so much grief that I just think that little bit of effort may have caused us to maybe get that goal, because that's all we needed. So, David, if you said Lloris as the club captain, the right thing to do?
If I was Mourinho, I'd be absolutely delighted with it. Look, Mourinho's come out and defended these players in the press, and not so much come out like with his words defending them, but with his actions. Like, you know, he's come out, he's took stuff on the chin. He's always been the front man after every defeat. He's always, said things that people are saying, why is he saying this? Why is he saying that? Like, what did he want him to do? To come out and bollock them? If he does that, people say he wants him gone because he's toxic. So what he done there is he made a stance. You know, it's kind of like, well, now it's time for some of the leaders in this dressing room to speak up. You know, I took the one from the North London Derby. This one's inexcusable. I'm not taking the flak from this. I gave you absolutely everything you needed to do to go out there to get this job done. Not one of you is executed. So now this one's up to you to explain. And what I've done is, if you're Hugo Lloris, so look, when Pochettino had to start relying on a centre midfield partnership of Sissoko and Winks and Ben Davies and Aurier and stuff like this, they ultimately cost his job because they're just not good enough to be here. Then Mourinho's come in. Mourinho's obviously had it with them behind closed doors, the likes of some of these players, and said, look, the reason why you're not playing is because you need to up your levels. Yeah. Then we got injuries. He had to rely on these players. Form dipped. The answers have been there all along with these players anytime they've come in. And I think it's a case of even Lloris and like even Harry Kane's social media post after, I think it's come to and the fact that Harry Kane was actually playing at right back 2 minutes before the half-time whistle to ensure we kept that league going into half-time shows me that these leaders and the people that want to win things and the people we should be building around and that we should be concentrating on are the ones pulling in the right direction for the manager. I can't remember the last time I seen players flying in front of shots like I did there against Villa. You know what I mean?
And that's the difference, isn't it?
It makes a huge difference. It's the difference between a clean sheet and not a clean sheet.
Yeah,
100%. What it has definitely done is it's made the winners' voices louder than what like the likes of Eric Dyer and Doherty and Winks, all these players that have come out into the press over the time. Their voices have been heard and people are picking up pieces. But what's happened now is the bigger voices, the voices we should be listening to in the dressing room, they're the ones that are being heard. And it's come to a point, I think, where, Hugo Lloris, it's kind of like, look, I don't want to go. I want to stay at Tottenham. But ultimately, after tonight, if these players get these managers sacked, I'm out of here. So I'm going to come out. I'm going to say my piece on it. I'm going to rock the boat a little bit. And I'm not going to let another manager carry the can for the likes of these losers.
100%. And I agree with you on that last point. That's very much what I thought it was. It backed up what the manager has probably been saying a lot. And the manager is always the one that's going to get the blame. We probably as Spurs fans can look and be critical of the players because we watch them week in, week out. A lot of people who are just the layman watching think, it's the manager, it's Jose. What's he done? What Lloris did was basically say to everybody out there that we were given specific instructions and players didn't do it. That's what he did. He singled out play. He didn't name them, but he gave everybody enough information to say it wasn't the manager. This was down to us. And for me, that's what caused Jose to have, right now, I've got the ability to pick another team because now people won't be on my case. If he'd have picked that same team against Villa, having not had the same sort of outburst from that Zagreb game, I think a lot of us would have been, so what's going on here? He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just throwing anybody in. What we've now witnessed is the fact that players, senior players, have said, this is not good enough. Jose, you now have our blessing as such to be able to go and make those changes and maybe leave out some of these ones. Because it was quite clear some of the players who weren't in the squad, we can all say what we want about them, but there was some players that just might not play again this season.
Yeah. And you can see the ones that do want to play because look at Lucas Moura. The guy didn't stop running. He was just absolutely everywhere. Busting the gut, it covered probably, well, I hate to think how much ground he covered, but that's someone who's wanting to play for the badge. You could argue, would Dele Alli have done that? Probably not. And same with Højbjerg, when he came back in, the amount of ground that he covered, and Ndombele probably feeding off that energy of the likes of Højbjerg, the likes of Lucas Moura, positive energy and positive vibes, it just thrives throughout the team. Where if you've got a negative if you've got a couple of negative players, it's like poison, isn't it? It just spreads throughout the team. And
so my question though is, and I'll ask Darius this question: if Jose sticks with these same players, let's say in the next game against Newcastle, I think Newcastle is probably not a fair reflection of the next game where we need to be really overly concerned. But certainly when we're looking towards a game against Manchester United, would you be happy that you saw the lineup we did, or at least the omission of some of the players, the likes of Aurier, the likes of Doherty, the likes of Alderweireld, the likes of Winks? Would you be okay with them not playing for the remaining part of the season if they are indeed the players that are not performing?
Yeah, but then I can't really complain if players get injured and then we have to field these players and they don't perform because you've come to the terms that they're not good enough and they shouldn't be playing. So if we have to forcibly play them, then we can't really get angry if they don't perform because they don't want to perform. We don't expect anything from them. So yeah, they shouldn't play. I think certain players have proven to us that they aren't really here for Spurs and they don't really want to to win. They're not really embarrassed as much as we are. And I can see that in certain players because I don't think, like, for example, I don't think Sissoko really cares. There was that one clip that was going quite viral on Twitter where the block that Tanganga made and Sanchez made, even Sanchez, and we slate Sanchez, but at least he tries in every game. Yeah. They dive, they risk their lives to take that block, and Sissoko's just there dangling a leg out. You can't. That's unacceptable under any circumstance. That's unacceptable. So yeah, those sort of players they can't play. But I worry. I worry if this is going to create this. I just hope that we win, because if we win, like we keep saying, if you're winning, nobody really cares. You can kind of keep players on the bench, and it's what happened with Klopp and Liverpool. They played the same 11 for what 2-3 years straight, but they were winning, so it was okay. Those players understand that they have a role, but it might not be in the starting 11. If we're winning, I think Jose can kind of prove to the other players as well. Maybe not the ones like your Kanes and Lloris's, but maybe like the ones who are on the fringes, who maybe not convinced fully, don't know with Jose. He can prove to them if we winning that I'm the right guy. Yeah. So it will work if we win games. I keep saying we need to keep winning these games. The one game against Villa is great. We've got back on track. We have to beat Newcastle. We have to fight against Man United. We have to keep winning these games for it to be a working tactic for him, for what he did with Lloris, for us to prove that it's going in the right direction now.
I mean, there might have been a couple of players that he's left out because they've played 120 odd minutes. So there's going to be a couple of players that, like Toby, didn't feature. I think he came out and
we're still speculating. I think he was speculating on that.
And I think he came out and said he's feeling better and he's joined up with the Belgium squad, hasn't he? So there might, and like with Aurier, I mean, we're saying he's a bad egg. I mean, we are surmising, but I mean, again, he played the full, was it 120 minutes, wherever it is. So there's probably a couple of players that you could probably excuse because they played a full 120 on Thursday, and Mourinho wanted fresh players to stop that sort of threat of any injuries. But yeah,
see, that's also the good thing though. Sorry lads, that's also the good thing, because don't forget we have Lamela, who's definitely playing for Mourinho. You have Son, who's definitely been playing for Mourinho, to come back in. Probably if you are talking Alderweireld and Serge Aurier, all of a sudden that gives us options, which means we don't have to rely on some of them losing between now and the end of the season, which would be beneficial.
Yeah.
And you know what, to be honest, I think you mentioned as well, I'm at the stage where you're right, David. Like some of these players, I'd rather play kids than see those players play, because they're clearly not in it. If they're not in plans, don't play them. And if we lose, then just accept that we've probably not got half our squad per se because we're not playing them. And think about the future. We've got to think forward. If that's the mentality that he's taken, and we've come out and Lloris has now said that these players are basically a disgrace and not playing. The 11, he said, the quote that made me really think, okay, yeah, it's serious, is when he said, if you're not starting or if you're not in the 11. And you're still not contributing to the team, then it's like there's an issue. Do you know what I mean? And that made me think, there's certain players that I know aren't playing and are angry that they're not playing. And that's, you can be angry for not playing, but you still have to contribute to the team. Like Aurier, you can't walk out halftime in a game. That's unforgivable, no matter what player you are.
So it's true. Again, that kind of leads us to, because there was one glaring omission from the starting lineup at the weekend for a player that I think has been playing pretty well of late, and it's a bit coincidental that certain things start to come out. Obviously, when we go into international break, there's always press stories, there's always is. But our last talking point, Bale going back. So it's come out in the press today that Gareth Bale wanting to get fit in time for the Euros this season. One of the reasons why he came back to Spurs, to get game time, but has kind of almost left it, I wouldn't say open, but it's not quite closed. But he certainly made it clear that he's looking likely to be going back to Madrid at the end of this season. But it wasn't, I'm definitely going back and I'm not staying at Tottenham, but it was a very open-ended sort of, I don't know if it's a come and get me sort of plea, or he just doesn't want to be there because of maybe what's happened in the last few days. Darius, I'll come to you first. Would you be happy to see Bale go back, or would you want to see Bale for another season at Spurs?
To be honest, I wouldn't care if he stayed. I wouldn't care if he went. For me, it's Bale. When Bale came, I was never personally excited. Like, obviously, having Bale back in the team, nostalgia, it's great seeing Bale. But when I was thinking about it, it's like the guy's on almost 300k a week. I'm not that fussed. He's injury prone. It's going to take him a while. It's something that's kind of, I think it was made with the intention of, I think he would have stayed for another year if there was fans guaranteed next season. I'm not sure that Gareth Bale really, I don't think it's something that Daniel Levy was ever going to consider extending. That's me personally. He could come back, but I just think that he's 30. What is he, 31, 32 now?
31 now.
31. I know Daniel Levy. I understand that he wants the fans to be happy, but he's also a businessman, and it doesn't really make sense to spend 15 million annually on Gareth Bale if you can't guarantee his fitness. And I think they did mention something like that. I think Daniel Levy was saying that he's going to hold out on guaranteeing or confirming a second year, because you don't know with Gareth Bale. He could do his calf at the end of the season and be out for 3 months. So it's just one of those. I was happy to see him. I'm not going to shit on the guy because he's 30. He's 31. He's come back to Tottenham. He's got his game time. He's got back to fitness. But we can't really be angry. We can't call him a traitor for using us for game time. It's one of those where he's on loan. He's on loan for a year. There was no obvious extension for a year. So it's a year loan. I can't be angry at that. I'm not going to beg for him to come back. I think there's plenty of other right mids that you could probably get who are high quality, maybe not technically as gifted as Bale, but he's not going to work hard. He's not going to really defend on that right side, that like how Jose wants his right wings to do. So I think that system-wise, manager-wise, it probably wouldn't have worked for another year. It was great having him now. He scored a few good goals. He did carry us in that for the past 4 weeks, I would say. He definitely was a massive addition to our team, but it's just 50 million a year. I don't think it's worth it for the output that he's given us this season.
For me, this is more about timing. I don't know whether or not this, again, there's lots of things that get generated during international week to kind of sell papers, to sell columns on social media, etc., etc. I remember at the beginning of the season, Gareth Bale was very, very happy. He looked very happy. His agent came out and said Gareth Bale's really happy. The way he was treated at Madrid, I'm not sure why he'd want to go back there, even if it was to go back for a year and just do what he was doing. So again, I'm kind of taking a little bit of a pinch of salt, because I'm not entirely sure whether or not this is definitely the word of it.
Job?
You say that again. What did you say?
You think it rides on Zidane's job? Because I don't think Zidane will keep his job if he doesn't win that Champions League. So I don't know if it might ride on.
I'll ask David. David, what's your thoughts on the Bale situation? Does it depend on what's happening at Madrid, or is it dependent on what's happening at Spurs?
You know, that's a new angle of coming at it. Fair play, because no one's actually said that about Zidane and the job at Real Madrid. It could possibly well hang on Zidane's job, but at the end of the day, look, it's clear as day. Gareth Bale uses for the Wales for the Euros coming up. To be honest with you, because you know he was coming to the club, you know, and we all knew it was going to take 5-6 months for him to get his fitness back and get up to speed and all. So if he was only coming here for a year, you know, I'm disappointed that we fell into that trap and allowed it to happen. To be honest, I don't blame Gareth Bale. You know, if he could make it happen and it benefits him. At the end of the day, I suppose all winners are selfish, aren't they? So, you know, he's going to do what he needs to do. But at the same time, I'm angry that it was allowed to happen, because if he's not coming here with a 2-year plan, then what was the point of bringing him here in the first place?
It's a lot of money.
You know what I mean? It's just been a waste. It just tells me that he was brought in just to fill bodies and appease the fans. Like,
you know what? I agree with that. I think I genuinely believe that they looked at it as a bit of a business thing. Bring Gareth Bale back, lots of shirt sales, lots of people thinking Gareth Bale, save his back, black back. Yeah, if we had fans in the stadium, again, I go back to that fans thing, this would have made a massive difference, because we would have all probably been crying out for Bale to come on. And had we seen him play like how he's played in the last 4 or 5 weeks, we would have been, oh yeah, great, he has to stay, putting pressure on the board to make sure that happens. Because of the no fan situation, because of the fact that we had some really abject performances, maybe it's a bit of both. Maybe Gareth looked at it and said, you know what, I don't think I can do it here with these players. Maybe the manager's not to his liking. Maybe he just thinks he wanted to, as you said, just get fit in time for the Euros, and he wants to go back and live in the sunshine and play golf on.
Because it is clear he does care about Wales more. He cares about international football way more than club football.
But do you think Mourinho and Levy are daft enough not to see through the likes of Gareth Bale and his intentions? I don't think they're stupid enough to fall for that whole, oh, he only wants to come here to get fit and play for the Euros. I don't think they're daft enough. I mean, Mourinho's been around the block, and so has Lee. I mean, they've been in the game longer than Gareth Bale's been playing sort of professional football and stuff. So I can't see Bale wanting to go back to Madrid. The fans don't even like him, so why is he going to want to come out and say, yeah, I want to go back to a club where the fans absolutely hate me? Is Zidane going to?
Or they could win trophies potentially.
I don't know, but Mike, you know what? People could hate me for 650 grand a week. I tell you that much. I don't care if they hate me for more.
Yeah, but those Madrid fans are passionate. They're not like they're not like your English fans over here, where we just give them a bit of grief on social media.
Yeah,
they'll go to your house, won't they?
I think there's a bit more to it.
To the golf course without the rain pissing down on top of it.
But you know what? You say that, but Gareth Bale actually probably will think like he loves golf. Seriously, you say that as a joke, but I probably actually take that with a big bit of salt.
As I said, it's very interesting time, and I always look at these things with a little bit of right. Why would somebody come out with that now? Basically, after what's happened in the last week or so, again. When we were if we looked at this 4 or 5 weeks ago, we would never have thought Gareth Bale wanted to go back to Madrid. He was like, looks happy, you know. He was really he was doing things that made me think that he would like to stay at Spurs. Now, I understand about the Euros thing. I get all that, but he was always going to be in that Euro squad anyway.
I honestly can't see Bale coming out and saying that this time of the year. If you're going to say it, hold tight you got 10 games. Why would you jeopardize 10 games of match time, and especially when you got the Euros, because Mourinho could just turn around and say, actually, now you said that, mate, you fuck off.
You know what? To be fair, he's got a record of running his mouth in international press conferences and interviews. He's done it before where he kind of was speaking on Zidane's name a lot in international. I genuinely think he said that, maybe not thinking too smartly with any intentions that could happen. I genuinely think that Gareth Bale just said that because he genuinely thinks that, and he's probably considering going back to Madrid, but I really do think you're right in what you're saying. Like you can't want to go back there if Zidane's still there and the fans are still on his case.
It just doesn't make sense. It
doesn't.
Unless the media have twisted what he said slightly, and then there's been someone's sort of released something and put their own twist on what he's meant, and it's all come out like this. I just, the timing just seems weird.
The timing, that was the thing for me. The timing's very weird. I don't know how many direct quotes there are from the player himself. Again, you know what the press is like. We know how media works. We can take a little bit of that whole thing and make it into what we want as a narrative. I don't know. And I always go with this thing. There's always an agenda when it comes to press releases and things like that coming out in the press, particularly at this time. We've heard stuff like Steven Gerrard coming to Spurs. We've heard, all these sort of, where did that come from? I don't even see where that's just come from all of a sudden. So we're always going to have media generating stories to sell column inches. So again, I'm not quite so sure. Would it surprise me if he went back to Madrid? It wouldn't surprise me because I'm not utterly convinced that he's what Jose wants, but I think Jose is big enough to know that when you've got a world-class player like Gareth Bale, he's a difference maker and can be a difference maker. So why wouldn't you want to keep him if he was happy? If he's unhappy, different matter, a completely different matter. Gentlemen, I think that wraps about it. That is about it. I think it's been good. We've kept a good time, and I think we've touched on some points here which were very, very relevant during the week. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Please hit that like button. And also subscribe if you're new to the channel, if you're watching. We would like you, obviously, to get all the information about all the contents that we have, various content on various different teams, but particularly Spurs. Gentlemen, Mike, Darius, David, we will see you all again. It's been a pleasure. Take care, and we are out.